No technology will ever be sufficient to fulfill the infinite urge that we internally have. It's not that we don't have the right technology, it's that we don't have the right center. We are looking for solutions in the wrong directions. As long as nations take GDP as the end of everything, it will be difficult, rather impossible, to address the climate catastrophe. So unless our education, our upbringing and our culture expose us to non-consumeristic delights, we'll be forced to find happiness in consumption, and that is climate change. Why exactly, for example, is Alexander great? And if I say that is related to climate change, people will balk. They'll say, how is Alexander's greatness related to climate change?
So much of our Vedic culture was about respecting nature, right? We used to treat them as gods, the elements, fire, wind, rain. We always worship these elements. When did we start destroying them?
Worshipping nature is a great thing. So respect towards nature comes from self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is about knowing what ails you. Once I know what really ails me, then I will be at least impartial towards nature. I need not be obsessed with nature. I need not say, oh, I love nature.
Do you think science without religion is dangerous? Today I'm sitting across someone who doesn't just talk about spirituality, he questions it, challenges it, and forces us to rethink everything we think we know about the way we live, whether that's religion, nature, science, happiness, and so many other aspects. Acharya Prashant is not your typical spiritual leader, philosopher, thinker, or teacher. He is a rationalist, he's a truth seeker, and he's someone who fiercely advocates for clarity in a world that's muddled with so much confusion. An IIT and IIM graduate, an ex-civil servant, to someone who bridges the gap between ancient wisdom to modern challenges, including talking about pressing issues that we rarely hear people talk about: climate change, sustainability, animal rights. Namaste, Acharya ji.
That's a lot of introduction. Namaste, and welcome.
I'm so grateful and I'm so honored to have you here. I feel like I'm meeting my real life mentor. I don't think you knew you're my mentor. I've been watching your videos for such a long time, such a huge fan.
I'm glad.
Thank you for the work that you do, and I'm really excited to have this chat with you.
I'm glad.
Acharya ji, I want to start with something that I've only heard you say. You say that the climate crisis is a spiritual crisis. What is the connection?
The connection is fairly obvious. Where does carbon come from? We are not really producing carbon, right? The Earth's system has only as much carbon as it always has had, right?
Right.
So then where is the carbon coming from and reaching the atmosphere? That we are digging it out. It was all lying sequestered below the surface of the earth. We are digging it out, we are burning it, and that produces carbon dioxide and monoxide and methane and such things, oxides of nitrogen, and these are the greenhouse gases. So it's all our doing. First of all, we know it's anthropomorphic. We know we are doing it. It's not that the nature itself has had some disruptions in the carbon cycle. We are the emitters of carbon. Now, why are we doing that? If something is being done, there must be a reason why it is being done. Human beings are doing it, and we are people of reasons. The reason is our desire. We want to have more energy. We want to have food of a particular kind. We want to kill animals. We want to do all kinds of things that we think will give us a better life and happiness. And we think happiness comes from consumption. So we are exploiting the Earth's resources more and more. We feel that the more we exploit the Earth's resources, the more we consume, the more happiness we will get. So at the root of all carbon emission is human beings' pursuit for happiness. Now this happiness obviously is an inner thing.
Yeah.
To get this inner thing, to fill this inner void, we are burning fossil fuels and slaughtering animals and doing all kinds of obnoxious things. Right? So the reason is internal. And the fact remains that in spite of burning as much carbon as we can, Man remains as unfulfilled and as unhappy as he ever was.
Very true.
In fact, the rate of mental illness today is unsurpassed at any point in history.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a spiritual crisis in the sense that it is something to do with our center, something to do with what I call as the hole in our hearts. We are trying to plug that with consumption, and consumption is emission. Human consumption is carbon emission. And we can keep on consuming, keep on emitting carbon. That is not fulfilling us. So we think that we are unfulfilled because we have yet not consumed enough.
There's always a want for more.
So we want more and we burn more.
Yeah.
And then there is more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And that's what is happening. And we think that the problem is that we do not have the right kind of technology. Therefore, we are emitting carbon, and this problem is there. It's not got to do with the technology. No technology will ever be sufficient to fulfill the infinite urge that we internally have. It's not that we don't have the right technology. It's that we don't have the right center. And we are looking for even the solutions in the wrong directions. We feel that green energy would do it. Green energy is good. Yes, there should be green energy, but green energy is not the final solution. The final solution is that we have to have alternate sources of pleasure. Yes, we definitely are suckers for happiness. We are people who need to be joyful, obviously, and that is some kind of birthright that we have. No one deserves to spend his life in misery and suffering. So joy is the sine qua non for living. But joy has to be attained from higher sources. Consumption is not a high source.
What are higher sources?
We are discussing, I don't think this is particularly releasing any carbon into the atmosphere, but this is delightful, is it not? And we have just begun.
Yeah.
One reads a great book. One just sits outside here. We are discussing in Goa, and there is so much greenery, and it's beautiful. And you can just watch nature instead of exploiting it. One way to have fun is, right, let's hack down a few trees. And that would release carbon into the atmosphere. Wood would decompose, and that would mean carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
The other thing is to just sit here and watch the trees grow, and the leaves dance, and the wind sing. And there is joy. There is joy without consumption. There are the arts, there is exploration, there is invention. One can get into science and dedicate his life to research. And that does not particularly involve consumption. And yet there is so much delight. So unless our education, our upbringing, and our culture expose us to non-consumeristic delights, we'll be forced to find happiness in consumption, and that is climate change.
Wow. But as a consumer, as an individual, when I'm bombarded with ads, I'm bombarded with wanting material wealth, or that is made aspirational. You see a wedding that went viral recently. You aspire to having more, doing more, consuming more. How do I fight that urge as an individual?
You see, just as there are people who take it on themselves to bombard you with those ads, there must be other people who must get up and say the right kind, the alternate kind of influence or education or deconditioning has to reach the masses. So right now it's quite lopsided. The side that wants you to chain through very lowly conditioning is fully active and very powerful and very resourceful. And those who understand things really are much fewer in number, and for some reason they don't want to be active. They don't want to respond to the call. They don't want to rise to the battle. Someone will have to say, I'm in for a nice war. Because it's a battle for the mind of humanity. It is battle for our very souls. As we are born, as babies, we do not know what life is all about. If one is constantly bombarded, as you said, with propaganda that you are born to consume, you must be happy, and happiness lies in eating that, destroying that, exploiting this, or dominating that one, if you are constantly fed with these inputs, then that's what you'd probably come to believe in. Very few people biologically have the kind of light that can dispel all the darkness that is thrown on you from all directions. That inner light, very few people have. Others have the potential. Others have the potential to be ignited, even though they may not have the light by themselves, but they can be ignited. If someone with the right intentions and the right effort touches them from outside. So that is what is missing. The right meaning people will have to get into it. Otherwise, we have left the field open for all the wrongdoers.
Yeah. I feel almost less than if I feel like I'm repeating an outfit, or, I don't have the latest technology, or if I'm not doing what somebody else is doing, I almost feel like I don't belong and I'm missing out on something if I'm not consuming in the structure that we live in. Is there a way for me to fight that? Is there a way for me to overcome that, or for us to change the norms?
The way is immersion. In the language of reason, immersion. You're immersed in something. In the language of spirituality, the way is love. You have to have something in life that makes you forget about your outfits and the other things, whether you have had great food, whether you have answered to the various calls that you receive on your phone, whether you have met your shopping quota for the month. There must be something in life that so powerful, so overwhelming, so captivating, that it makes you forget all of that. You even forget yourself, you forget the time, you forget to look at the watch. Unless that is there, one will have to take refuge in consumption. And it's not that one has to really go out and externally discover a purpose to live by and live for. The fact is, as we are born, the purpose is inbuilt. You see, we are born with a lot of weaknesses. Don't we experience guilt, fear, anger, all kinds of temptations and jealousy? So the purpose is anyway there inside. The purpose is to get rid of all these things that are not right, but are yet present in you. There would be nobody who would say that I'm afraid and I want to remain afraid.
Yeah.
Is it not so?
Yeah.
You experience fear, so do I.
All the time.
But neither do you want to experience fear.
Yeah.
Nor do I want that.
Yeah.
None of us want that, yet fear is inexorable. It is present in you, present in me. So many other things as well. Delusion, for example. You think of one thing as something and it turns out to be something else. And then there are shocks and stumbles and heartbreaks and so many things. And we are territorial and we are exploitative. And we want to occupy stuff, and then nations fight wars. And then we say, oh, war is such a bad thing. Look at the 3 big wars that we are fighting on this planet right now. Both the warring sides are constantly saying, no, war is bad, let's make peace, let's have a mediator. I don't want war. That one is exciting me to fight. So in our heart of hearts, we all know this is not something that we should be doing, and yet we do it. And that is bondage. That is bondage. These are things that nobody wants inside himself or herself. Yet these things are present. Think of all kinds of weaknesses. We all experience weaknesses. Yet we all know we don't want to be weak. That's not our fundamental nature to be weak. Maybe it's some kind of primitive habit to exhibit weaknesses. But our fundamental nature says, you should not be weak. You should not relent.
Yeah.
You should not submit. You should not kneel down. Yet we do all that. So life gives you a purpose right along with your birth. The purpose is to get rid of your frailties, weaknesses, and all kinds of these petty things that just are riding on your back like some pestering monkey. If you really say, I want to get rid of greed, envy, jealousy, and I don't like the way I am.
Yeah.
Nobody likes the way he is, and that's why we all want to become somebody else, don't we? We are all on the process of becoming.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, we are not all right as we are. Nobody is all right being himself or herself. We say we want to improve. Everybody is on the process of change.
Growth, self-growth.
Growth, self-growth. If we can change if we can take that more seriously, and if we can say, the fundamental problem is jealousy and fear and weakness, and I want to fight that. That's the kind of love affair we need. A love affair with greatness, our own greatness. I'm so petty, but that's not what I necessarily need to be. Why can't I be great? Why can't I be really beautiful? Why can't I be open-hearted? Why can't I be sublime? Why can't I be patient? Why can't all the beautiful things in life, all the things that you really worship in your gods, why can't the purpose of life be to discover your own God within, your own God in your own face, in your own name? God that you are, your own inner godliness. Once you devote yourself to that purpose of life, would there really be time to binge shop and binge eat and continue to watch all kinds of stupid movies and needlessly globetrot just because you don't feel satisfied at one place? There would be no need for that. Not that one has to shun that, not that one has to completely renounce all those things. Just that those things are put in their place, in their right place. Now I know what my life is for. My life exists for my betterment. I exist to beat myself. I exist to be my own best self. And then other things become secondary, and there is not so much need to consume. See, a certain degree of consumption is necessary. Otherwise, it's also harmless. Nature does not mind if you consume till a certain point.
Yeah.
There is enough on the earth
for
everyone's need, and
everyone's
also
need
for
and not greed. That's what it says.
Yes,
the earth has enough for everyone's need, but not everyone's greed.
That's true. And the planet also does not mind. If you consume to a certain level, nobody complains. The animals are okay with that. The trees are okay with that. Nobody complains. It's only when you go bonkers, it's only when you become totally unhinged, you turn mad upon nature, that's when destruction occurs. And that's a result of lovelessness.
Lovelessness of one's own self?
Yeah, yes, of course. The primary love affair is to be attracted to your own best potential, no? See, when you fall in love with someone, or when you are in awe of someone, is it not to that person's qualities? It is therefore the qualities that we want to fall in love with. And if qualities are to be loved, why not our own qualities? That's the primary love affair. To develop oneself from within in such a way and to such an extent that one can love himself. Very few people really love themselves. Most people are just unhappy and embarrassed with themselves, are we not? So, and it's a great thing, it sounds small, but it's a great thing to be embarrassed with yourself.
I think that's the biggest obstacle.
And it's the biggest delight that life can give you, when you are all right with yourself. And let that be the purpose of life, not consumption.
Wow. I used to run a fintech, Acharya. Before this, I was running a fintech in Sweden. It was a sustainable fintech. And we were trying to see how to best use money to get people to not consume, because when we thought of, we can do green consumerism, or we can reward people for consuming in a sustainable way, and we realized the biggest problem of the 21st century is actually overconsumption. So, we were trying to come up with ideas as to how to reward people to go for a walk, or how to reward people to, read a book. But there wasn't a single financial incentive that we could come up with where you reward people for engaging in these higher pleasures. What do you have to say about the economic side of it versus the when you engage in these higher pleasures that don't add to the GDP per se?
See, delight doesn't exist for economics. Economics exists for delight.
Have we confused the two?
Yes, we think that the central thing is money. The central thing is not money. You want to have money so that you feel good about yourself. If you are in the business of making people feel good about themselves, that might not necessarily relate to money. The fellow is already good. He doesn't need to be incentivized with money.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying a movie, would you want someone to come and offer you money so that you continue watching? You're already enjoying it. If life is already good, what do I need excess money for? Money is not the center, money is the means. So,
Yeah. Because that's what we talk about every time we talk about, degrowth or consuming less. People bring it back to GDP of nations and the economy of that nation.
but
and
the GDP is not the end. No? GDP is not the end. That's the problem with our education, you see. That's the problem with the way we are raised.
Yeah.
We start thinking that GDP is the summum
Highest
bonum,
indicator.
the highest peak.
Growth, development,
Everything.
progress.
And if there is GDP, and what GDP is to the country, personal income is to an individual.
Yeah.
Right? GDP is national income. And for the individual, it is personal income.
Yeah.
So if the nation will be obsessed with GDP, it is instructing the individual to be obsessed with personal income. And it's a very dangerous message to give. Also, in context of climate change, as long as nations take GDP as the end of everything, it will be difficult, rather impossible, to address the climate catastrophe. Because GDP focus and meaningful climate action cannot go together. Not possible.
That goes against the way we function at the moment.
Yes. And we don't seem to realize that.
Yeah.
We want to keep maximizing the GDP and we want to do something about climate change. That cannot happen. You'll have to do first thing about climate change and try not to disrupt your growth patterns to the extent possible. But if growth is to be compromised for the sake of climate, let that be.
There's not a single leader that talks about this at any of the climate conferences. We talk about fossil fuels, we talk about planting trees, we talk about decarbonization, slowing down, phasing out, cutting down, whatever of fossil fuels there might be.
See, we are demanding too much. You see, mankind, our history, we have lived in a certain way. And our center has been of consumption. Climate crisis is not something of today. It is just exhibiting itself today. It is the sum total of our entire history. The way we have perceived ourselves and nature and our relationships and our life and our purpose. The whole flow of history. That has now come to this point. Now, if you really want to address climate meaningfully, then you will have to negate the center we have had all along in our history. That's very difficult, very challenging.
Wow.
No leader is internally equipped to take that up. They cannot. It's not that they don't want to. It's just that they don't have it in them to take this up. You see, we think that we started releasing carbon only after 1850 or something.
Yeah.
1850, we first measured the ppm levels. They came to 280. And after that, it has been increasing. So we take it to be a recent thing, a modern thing. Because we got industrialized, so we started burning fuel. So also there was a lot of demand for electricity and a lot of transportation and these things, and that's why we are releasing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That's the general framework.
Story, yeah.
That's the prevalent paradigm.
Yeah.
No, that's a very myopic story, and that's a very, very micro paradigm.
Okay.
The fact is that those who have really known life throughout history, in India, in Greece, and elsewhere, have been very few in number.
Okay.
And we have not really respected them. We have not listened to them. Instead, our entire culture in India and everywhere, not just the West, even in the East, China, Japan, everywhere, Korea, it has been principally around consumption. And those who could drill some sense into us, I am saying we have not respected them enough.
Yeah.
So it is this urge for consumption that has been present in all cultures and societies since the advent of civilization that has now come to this tipping point. What we are right now doing is like the last straw on the camel's back. It's not that in the last 200 years we have become so perverted that we are destroying the entire planet. It's not about just the last 200 years. It's about our culture. It's about the way mass religion has been practiced. It is about the way we have chosen to worship kings who have conquered territories, and we have called them great. Why exactly, for example, is Alexander great? And if I say that is related to climate change, people will balk. They'll say, how is Alexander's greatness related to climate change? I'll say, you see, what was Alexander doing all the time? Why do you call him great? He was on an expansionist spree. The fellow was saying, I'm young, and remaining young, I want to consume as much land as possible.
Yeah.
That was what he was doing. And what did you do? You rewarded that mindset by calling him Alexander the Great. We are again glorifying youngsters who have a lot of money. If the fellow is walking home with a 10-20 lakh thing at the end of the month at age 30, we say, wow, look at him. No, it's the same Alexander. But today, we are talking of climate change. At the time of Alexander, we didn't have enough resources to harm the earth in a significant way. We were still harming. We were in the process of destruction. It was building up. But it was still some distance, some centuries from fructifying. So it didn't show up. It was not apparent. But what is happening today is a continuation from what was happening since long. You see, man is a special beast, is he not? We are born with a terrible dissatisfaction in our hearts. Look at the consumption pattern of animals. Even if you give them much beyond their dietary or shelter needs,
the appetite.
Still their appetite, they'll still consume only as much as they have to.
That's true. As much if they're hungry, if only that much, they'll consume that and leave nothing.
We have seen lions and tigers walk past herds of zebras and deers without even looking at them if their tummies are full. I don't want to kill in advance. I'll not say that killing is fun. I'll consume only as much as is my biological need. But man is a special animal. We are born with a gaping hole, with a terrible discontent. If we do not understand the nature of that discontent, we'll try to fill that hole up with all kinds of things. And we have come to a point where even the entire planet is not sufficient to fill up the hole in man's heart. The wise ones will say that even the entire universe is not sufficient to plug that hole. Because you don't understand the nature of what you want. What you want is not more and more. What you want is not more and more of the world. What you want is not more and more of the planet. You know what we want really? I'm not sure whether it's coming at the right point in this conversation. Maybe it's coming too early. But I can't help.
Such thing, it's just gonna flow like a river.
Yes, uttering it out. What we want is not more and more of the planet. What we want is less and less of ourselves. It's not that we are unhappy that we have less of the planet. By planet, I mean resources, things to consume. It's not that we are unhappy that we have less of the world. We are unhappy really because we have too much of ourselves.
What do you mean by that?
So you have too much of... would you not want to shed a part of yourself? I would want to. The part of myself, we were talking of that a while back.
The feelings.
Yes, the needless feelings, the unnecessary emotionality, the weakness, and the pettiness, and this and that, and laziness. So that's what we want to reduce from us.
Yeah.
Now, instead of giving up something that we needlessly have, we take a totally different and a very harmful route. We say, I won't give up what I needlessly have. Instead, I'll acquire other and even more needless stuff.
That distracts me pretty much from what I'm trying to do.
So please see what we are doing. I'm someone who already has a lot of flab, psychologically, physically, in all ways possible, financially.
Yeah.
I already have so much that I don't really need. And that which I have in excess, that is what is my burden. That's what keeps bogging me down. That's what keeps disturbing me and perturbing me, and I'm never all right with myself. The excesses that I have, the psychological, mostly the psychological things that I'm carrying here.
Yeah.
But instead of giving up, what I do is, in all my intelligence, because I have something extra and that pains me, so I treat that pain by acquiring even more extra stuff from outside.
Wow.
So my shoulders, my neck, my entire body is aching because I'm carrying a terrible burden on my head. Like the coolies of old. You remember seeing them on the railway stations? They were carrying stuff on their head. And that's making everything ache. And some wise fellow comes to them and says, you can get rid of all the pain that you have if you put this 20 kg thing on your head additionally. Now, instead of unburdening, I am being burdened all the more. That's what all popular wisdom is about. That's what all folk culture has been about. That's what is the prevalent philosophy among the masses. And these masses are electing governments. Now, how do you expect leaders now to deliver in any kind of summit, Paris or Copenhagen or Rio de Janeiro, anywhere? They won't deliver. They cannot.
Wow. So much of our Vedic culture was about respecting nature, right? We used to treat them as gods, the elements, fire, wind, rain. We always worship these elements. When do we start destroying them?
You see, fundamentally, it's not about worshipping nature. Fundamentally. The fundamental thing is about knowing that destroying nature will not help your inner cause. Worshipping nature is a great thing, but not the most fundamental thing. The most fundamental thing is self-knowledge. Once I know what really makes me suffer, I also know what kind of treatment will not work for me. Will not work for me. Not. Destruction of nature or exploitation of nature to give oneself happiness is a false treatment. Now, it's only when you have the real diagnosis with yourself, only when you know your disease rightly, that you also know the falseness of the treatment. If I do not know my disease, then any treatment might appear to be the right kind.
Yeah.
It's only when I know the reality of my sickness, my disease, that I realize that destruction of nature is not a treatment that can work. So respect towards nature comes from self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is about knowing what ails you.
Yeah.
Once I know what really ails me, then I will be at least impartial towards nature. I need not be obsessed with nature. I need not say, oh, I love nature. If that is there, fine. But even if that is not there, at least do not be destructive towards nature.
Yeah.
I need not go and hug a tree, but at least I should not cut a tree. Hugging is optional.
I do that a lot.
Fine, that's fine.
A certified tree.
Fine, that's fine. One can go and hug a tree, one can go and hug animals, and all that is delightful, the little delights of life, that's fine. But that's not really necessary. What's necessary is that at least don't chop that tree down. At least don't slaughter that animal.
Yeah.
And if you have that attitude where you let nature be, classically it is called witnessing.
Witnessing.
Sakshitva.
Okay.
Witness nature. Witness nature. And in that witnessing there is great delight. If you can watch that one leaf fall, there are so many Zen stories. The fellow had traveled the entire world, but was yet to attain illumination. And then, all tired and weary, he sat down under a tree. And just then, a yellow leaf fell. And just watching the leaf fall, he was illuminated.
Yeah.
So no, he's not really kissing the leaf or something.
Yeah.
He's just watching. And in that witnessing, there is realization, there is delight. So that is sufficient. One has to know that, have you seen people? If they stand near a tree, they'll needlessly pluck the leaves and the for no reason. They won't even know why they are doing it.
Yeah, sitting on the grass, just like plucking the grass, taking things. Yeah.
There are street dogs, and the dogs are not causing them any realistic harm.
I've seen people throw stones at them.
But still they are throwing stones, or at least pretending that they are throwing stones. Whereas the mere dog, and it's a very frail kind of dog, undernourished dog, the dog, even if it wants to, cannot do any harm, and yet that fellow wants to do something to that dog. So you need not pick that dog up and keep it on your shoulders, but at least don't harm it. And that is sufficient. Witness it, watch it. And in that witnessing, it is also said that there is deep love. Without deep love, you cannot witness. If you don't have love, instead of witnessing, there would be exploitative engagement.
Which is what is happening right now.
Which is what is happening. We are so engaged with nature, are we not?
Yeah.
We are engaged, but that engagement is exploitative. And when I say, you see, that we are engaged with nature, that's not just trees and animals, that's also human beings.
Yeah.
When we engage with someone, you see, the fellow who does not know how to relate to a tree, will he know how to relate to a human being?
Wow, I've never thought of that connection.
So just that you want to use the tree for your own purposes.
Yeah.
Similarly, we want to use human beings for our purposes.
Yeah.
And if I say the crisis we have in relationships has something to do with the climate crisis, again, people will balk.
What's the connection?
The same thing. Just as I want to use a man or a woman for my needs, similarly, I want to use the entire planet for my needs.
Wow.
Simple.
Do you think that lack of love or the absence of witnessing something and just letting it be comes from that lack of connection to nature? Because so many of us grew up in cities, or grew up away from what nature really is, or without the benefits that nature offers us in the first place. Like
even those who are born in villages and hills that are not urbanized, even they are extremely destructive towards nature. It's not as if it's only the urban kids who have not seen animals and monkeys and birds and lakes and jungles, only they are destructive. No. If you go to the hills, even in the Indian context, go to Himachal Pradesh, go to Uttaranchal, some of the locals, you'll find they are ever ready to sell the hills illegally. They'll say, you want to chop down the trees, we'll assist you, just pay us this much. It's not about whether you have been living in proximity of trees and birds and parrots and lakes. It's about self-knowledge. It's not about your physical location. It's about self-knowledge.
Extending that self-knowledge broader context, like companies and corporations that don't pay the true cost of nature. It's not like you're paying money to get wood or air or wind, water, wherever your source of income is coming from, your supply chain. What do you have to say to that?
Put a mind that's out to acquire more. Ever want to pay the full cost of anything? You see, I have been told, I have been taught this way. I have seen that in weddings. I have seen that in school. I have seen that in my campus placements. I have seen that on the TV screen. I have heard that from the politicians, that you exist to acquire, accumulate.
Yeah.
If I exist to accumulate, and if I have a relationship with this, will I want to give or will I want to take?
Yeah, it's always about taking.
It's always about taking. So whether it's your relationship with the jungle, or it's your relationship with your kids, with your father, mother, husband, wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you always want to take. It's as simple as that. We have been taught that you exist to take. Why? Because you're deficient. We have been taught that you are born a beggar. So you must continue taking, accumulating, and we worship those the most who have taken the most.
Yeah.
We call them our billionaires. We call them our rulers, the great emperors.
Role models.
Our role models, because they have taken the most.
Yeah.
So the entire thing is sick, very sick. And unless you treat that whole thing from its very roots, it will be impossible to address the climate crisis.
You said we're born as beggars, we're taught to take. But at some point, I feel like it's also coming from a place of dominance, that taking is coming from a place of so much moral superiority that I am the dominant one. And the word dominant has kind of lost its meaning, that I'm here to exploit nature and animals. I can do what I please to do. with the resources that are available to me.
You see, when you are really full within, when you have joy and a certain completeness within, I'm all right with myself.
Yeah.
Would you really want to dominate the other? Does it happen? Can you recall your moments of total delight when you feel, oh my God, I'm so grateful, I have received more than I could have asked for? In those moments, do you want to be angry on someone? Do you want to possess someone or dominate him or take control of him or put him in your pocket? You don't want to do all those things, right? So domination as a tendency becomes active only when you are terribly unhappy with yourself. The more you are unhappy with yourself, the more you want to wreak violence on the other. We are unhappy. This entire race of ours, we are a very unhappy people because we are sick and we have not diagnosed the sickness rightly. We have been traditionally handed over the very wrong kind of, very needless, very stupid kind of solutions. We have been told, oh, you are unhappy, the life seems hollow. Why don't you have a few kids? That's one of the prevalent traditional solutions.
Yeah.
In all cultures. In all cultures.
Even if the marriage is not going the way it's supposed to go, to have a kid, it's going to
Have a kid that would redeem the marriage. So these are stupid things that have come to us by way of tradition. And we continue to believe in them. The center itself is very faulty. But when I say center, I mean the beginning of all things. The very hypothesis, the very assumption from where all our life discourse then spreads to cover every aspect of living. The very beginning is faulty, and that beginning has to be addressed. If we don't address it today, I don't suppose we'll have another opportunity.
In Advaita Vedanta, you talk about the duality. What is that duality and what is the concept of non-duality?
I am insufficient, I'm incomplete, and there exists this other reality outside of me, and I can use this other reality to fulfill myself. Two realities. Duality means two realities, kind of two truths. Okay. Non-duality simply means monism. There can be only one truth. You cannot have multiple truths. So there is me, the truth, and there is world, the truth. Don't we always say?
Yeah.
I am on this planet. So we are always talking of two truths. The truth of the individual and the truth of the universe.
Yeah.
And then we say, we are born and we die. I came and I went away. So again, there are two entities. So I checked in, I checked out. Again, there are two. Yeah. The visitor and the hotel.
Right.
Again, two. So that is duality. And in the dualistic discourse, there would be necessary violence. Because I'm incomplete, then what does the other exist for? It exists to be exploited so that I can be complete. The other exists so that I can use the other and feel better about myself. Be it in relationships, be it in anything.
That's why nature, animals, the planet,
human beings, everything,
of ourselves.
Money, everything exists just to fulfill me. Why do I want to have kids? Because the kids would fulfill me. Why do I want to get married? Because the spouse would fulfill me. Why do I want to slaughter? Because slaughtering would fulfill me. Why do I want to wage a war? Because more territory would fulfill me. Why do I want to be famous? Fame would fulfill me. So something from the world would fulfill me. That's duality. The other who could fulfill me could also be. Now we are entering choppy waters. The other who could fulfill me could also be a god. That too is in the purview of duality. So there is me, there is the other, and the other is God. Maybe God can fulfill me. Just as I look at maybe this villa can fulfill me. This villa is the other. The villa is the other to me. And maybe this villa can fulfill me. Similarly, duality also includes the character called God. Maybe this God can fulfill me. Let me worship him. Let me offer him, some treats. Let me massage him. Let me offer him stuff that we offer to human beings.
Yeah.
To make human beings happy, maybe the same thing will make the gods happy, and then the gods will fulfill me. So that's duality.
Is that the difference between religion and spirituality, what you just said?
Most religion is dualistic. Most religion is dualistic. It need not be. Religion is a beautiful word.
Yeah.
But religion as we practice it today is probably the fundamental reason why we are in such a sorry place. Because man is a religious animal, you see. We need religion. But we need religion of the right kind.
What do you mean by we need religion? Something for moral
Religion,
purpose?
not for moral purposes, not at all, not at all. Because the dog does not experience the kind of disquiet that we do. So the dog does not need religion. Religion, what is it? What is it by definition? Religion is that which will take you towards ease, towards peace, towards fulfillment. Now the root really would be self-knowledge. Only when I know why I am unfulfilled, would there be a possibility to remove the cause of the discontentment. So that's real religion, self-knowledge. But instead of that, religion becomes glorified ways, lionized ways to exploit. Religion becomes just morality carved in stone.
Yeah.
Do this, do not do that, and that we call as religion. That is not religion.
Tradition without any backing.
Tradition without any backing. Just do this. Why? Because the gods ordained this. It's coming right from the gods, so you have to do it.
Yeah.
That's the religion we practice mostly. No, that's not religion, that's stupidity. And that's the cause of most of human misery. And the misery we have inflicted on all the species on the planet. Real religion is about knowing why you are sick in the first place. That's real religiosity. But that religiosity is nowhere practiced. The religion that we see practiced all across the world is very sick, very destructive, and it's something that human beings can do very well without.
Causing more violence than
The remedy, what was supposed to be the remedy, has become the disease itself.
Can religion solve climate crisis?
Real religion, only real religion, and nothing but real religion.
How so? What's the connection between real religion as you know it and the climate
You
crisis?
see, when you start looking into yourself, you forget all about the tea. Now there is no need to turn on the burner. So you're not burning fuel anymore. That's it. Conversations, real conversations in which you don't want to pretend, where you can afford to be authentic.
Yeah.
Real conversations, real engagements are just so delightful that you don't need to burn coal or diesel then just for your entertainment. Immersion is something far deeper than entertainment and far more delightful.
Yeah. I think I'm entering the choppy waters with you, but having come back to India after such a long time and seeing the fervor that we have around so many festivals, so much of that has become around, wastage and excess and extravagance. It's almost about polluting the nature itself rather than celebrating what we meant to celebrate, whether that's, Dahi Handi, Janmashtami or Ganesh Chaturthi without.
You see, look at the common man. What is God to the common man? Someone who grants your wishes, someone who fulfills your desires. So that's what we do in the name of religion. It's just a very vulgar display of very beastly desires. That's what we do in the name of religion and our festivals and worship.
Because the aftermath is everything is polluted.
Obviously. You see, I want my wish to be fulfilled. That is prime. And for that, if I have to pollute the river, that's okay. That's okay. If religion is about fulfilling your wishes, it would definitely contribute to pollution and climate and destruction. Our desires stem from our ignorance.
Yeah.
Religion is meant to throw light on your ignorance. Do you get the equation, please?
Yeah.
We have desires. We are creatures of desire. We are always desiring, right? Yeah. After a while, we'll desire something. I want this, I want that.
Yeah.
That's what we are always doing. All desires stem from ignorance, because all desires are saying, every single desire says, if I get that, I'll be okay. Every object that you're desirous of is an object of promise. No, you get that object and you say, if I get that object in my life,
I'll be happy.
I'll be better off with myself.
Yeah.
I'll be happy. Does that ever happen?
No.
That doesn't happen. So desire says, get that so that you can be happy. Huh? So desire is born out of ignorance, you see. I do not know that the desire will not fulfill me. And yet I invest into the desire. We invest so much into our desires, our time, money, everything, effort. So religion was supposed to be the thing that would illuminate your ignorance and therefore sublimate your desires. Not that you will be left with no desires, but you will be left with higher desires. Now you can concentrate on higher purposes in life.
Yeah.
Religion was supposed to be that thing. That's the real definition of religion. You know what where the word religion comes from? Reunite, retether, and then the religion, jin, that's coming from, I don't know, Greek or Latin somewhere. And that means to bring the thing back to where it originally was.
Wow.
That's what religion is. Instead of that, religion has become about going outwards and outwards.
Yeah.
I want that. I'll go to that particular temple or mosque or church and pray to God to grant me that thing. Oh, I want to have a son. And God is supposed to bless you with sons. Fulfill that kind of desire, that kind of lowly desire, that kind of violent desire. So if you can have the right religion, then you will know that expanding outwards is not the solution. Then towards all this that we see outwards, we'll have a certain love, a certain understanding. We'll still have relationship with the jungles, with the animals, with the entire cosmos.
Yeah.
But we will not be looking at them with eyes of violence. It's not that if you are an inward-looking man, you'll be just sitting in your little cottage and having nothing to do with the world. You would still be an explorer. You would still be a scientist. Development would still happen.
Yeah.
Mankind would still go on acquiring more knowledge about the universe. But that knowledge will not be put to violent uses. Science would prosper, but science would not result in destructive technologies. That's what happens when there is self-knowledge. And that self-knowledge is what religion is really about. But it has become just too deformed and just too corrupted now to be salvaged.
Yeah.
Probably we need a totally new kind of religiosity now.
Do you think science without religion is dangerous?
Obviously, you see, science means knowledge. And that knowledge has come to someone who is just squirming in discomfort with himself. And if you get that knowledge, what will you do with that knowledge? You will make bombs. Nuclear energy can be used to illuminate a city. It can also be used to flatten a city. But if for someone boiling with hatred, you will not illuminate. You will destroy. So science and knowledge about the world, knowledge of atoms, knowledge of galaxies, without self-knowledge is a terribly dangerous thing. You see where climate change is coming from.
Yeah. But I also see that so much in a lot of COP28 was, I think, a love letter from one Middle Eastern country to the other Middle Eastern country. That's what I think.
There's nothing in it. Nothing.
It was all about.
There's nothing in it. Okay. And we also know that we are well on course to royally missing all the targets.
Which we are. I think the 1.5 degree threshold has already
gone.
Passed. What trajectory do you think we're on, given the extinction of species? Pumping more and more.
I don't want to even think about it. I'll rather think of the Armageddon or something more pleasant.
Are you optimistic about
I don't
climate?
Want to be pessimistic. I don't want to be optimistic. I just want to work. Because if I just project the trajectory, as you said, the projection would imply there is no need to work anymore. Just sit down and see everything reduced to ashes. So I don't want to care about the output of my work. I don't want to care about the result of what would... I just want to work.
So many people are afraid of, having children. Even the thought of having kids in a world like this where you don't know where we're going to end up. That's a question that...
I was wise enough to... to dispose that concern long back. See, if you extrapolate
Yeah.
the curve, what we clearly see is that every passing year, life is going to be even more terrible for every human being. And the most heart-rending part of that is that the brunt will be borne by those who are relatively innocent.
Yeah.
The rich ones would suffer little. Much more than the rich ones would suffer the middle classes.
Yeah.
And much more than the middle classes would suffer
The poorer ones.
the poorer ones, the underprivileged ones. And much more than even the most underprivileged human being would suffer the flora and fauna, the animals, the trees, the species that have done exactly nothing to deserve torment.
Being wiped.
So it's going to be very, very unjust. Those who are really responsible for this catastrophe, they'll be the last ones to perish. And the ones who are innocent, they'll be the first ones to go.
Yeah.
And when I say the first ones to go, it appears I'm talking in future tense. They're already going. They're not even already going. They're already gone.
Yeah.
We know how, if you talk of mammals, 96% of the mammals on the planet today are the ones cultivated by human beings.
Yeah.
Others are all gone.
Yeah. The biodiversity loss.
The biodiversity loss is so tremendous
Yeah.
that we are becoming more and more alone on this planet. Almost everybody is being forced to pack bags and leave. So I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. You're right, it's already happening. It's not just war refugees anymore. There are going to be more and more climate refugees, climate migrants across the world.
Because if you think more about it, probably it'll simply deflate you.
Yeah.
It's the time to fight. It's not the time to count bodies. When you're in a war, if you start counting bodies, that will take away your energy.
Yeah.
Just fight till your own end. That's what you can do.
Have you watched this movie, Don't Look Up?
I haven't.
Leonardo DiCaprio, he talks about exactly this.
Okay. Don't look up. Yes,
There's a parallel with climate
I
crisis.
haven't watched the movie. I've watched parts of it. Somebody recommended it. Yes.
Just about how we're ignoring the climate crisis. I think he's depicted that, ignoring the science, ignoring leaders such as yourself talking about it.
Yes.
Why do we ignore it was my next question, in terms of why are we so desensitized to it?
Because it's not about a particular area of life that you need to address in order to remedy climate change. You'll have to address the very center of life. You see, please understand. Let's say I have a disease. I have a disease in my finger, just in my finger, something, right? Treating it is not going to be terribly tough. Let's say I have a fracture here. So the doctor would come and do something about it, and it stands plastered, that's fine. I can carry on with my life as it was, always was, even with a fractured finger, and that's okay. That's okay. But what about a disease that asks you to change your entire center for its treatment? Then there would be a lot of people who will say, I prefer to live and die with the disease rather than treat it.
Yes.
Because treating the disease is almost like coming to a psychological end.
Fundamentally changing everything.
I'll have to fundamentally change myself, and to me that sounds like death. Because that is an end to the kind of existence I have had so far.
Yeah.
That sounds like death. So the fellow says, instead of choosing death for my treatment, it appears commonsensical to me that I choose life of the kind I have always had and let the disease remain. Even if the disease means that my lifespan would be cut short, even if I lose 10 years of my life, still I have some life to live. But sir, the kind of treatment you are proposing, that sounds to me like immediate death. Now, who wants to choose death over life? Now, this is where we stand.
The irony of
The irony of the situation is, if we want to survive, we'll have to choose a psychological death.
Wow.
If we want to live on, we'll have to come to the end of how we have lived since the beginning of consciousness.
I look at that as so much joy. I look at it with
Opportunity.
joy. I look at it that, you know,
It's an opportunity. You can mark a fresh beginning today, but most people are too scared to do that. Who wants to come to the end of the known trail and begin a journey into the unknown?
Yeah.
We are fundamentally people of security.
Yeah.
And we shiver. We say, no. Our great grandfathers are living like this. They were thinking like this. And they survived.
Yeah.
And they survived. The proof that their thought held some value is that they survived. So I want to continue on that thought. I want to walk down the same trail. I don't want to comment on something altogether different.
Yeah.
Now, what the climate question is, can you begin a new journey as an altogether different person? If you can start off in a totally fresh way, as a totally different person, only then you can answer the challenge. But we are trying to answer the challenge through all these stupid conferences in the same old framework. We want to remain the same old people, territorial, obnoxious, violent, greedy. And the leaders are all the time negotiating with each other. So many carbon points I will reduce, but in exchange you will have to reduce so many of your own.
Yeah.
And if you don't reduce of your own, I too will not reduce. And if you point fingers at one particular nation, you have not done enough. They say, hey, I have not done enough, but have you? So that's the kind of childish engagement we currently have. This is the old framework.
Yeah.
This is the old framework. This old framework cannot bring the right solution, the new solution that this crisis demands. This is a historical crisis. Either we will have psychological closure or we will have physical closure. One of these two has to end.
Yeah.
Either our history has to end or our species has to end. If we continue in the same historical way as we have done, then our species has to end.
That's the path we're on.
And that's the path we are on. That's why I don't want to think about it.
I also meant more the desensitivity, how desensitized we are, and the shutting off in terms of whenever you bring it up, the rolling of eyes. Oh, here she goes again talking about climate change, polar bears, wildfires. Who cares? I think that's the question. Where does that cognitive dissonance from the reality come from that you immediately shut off whenever someone talks about climate change?
It's not that these people are speaking these words. These words are coming from thousands of generations of our forefathers. It's the cumulative weight of the past that we are finding so difficult to budge.
That's almost okay to make me the evil person or the annoying person for you.
Because
to
if
not
you
deal
are
with the
right,
truth.
if you are right when you speak to them, and if you are right, then they will have to admit that their entire history has been wrong. And that hurts to admit.
Is it more important to be right, or is it more important to know the truth and to accept it?
For most people, it is comforts that matter, not the truth.
So even if you're speaking the truth, they will choose what they know, what is familiar, what the biases are, instead of seeking the truth.
Obviously.
How do you get someone in this situation to care about the climate crisis?
You see, there have been a lot of people over the centuries who have done their own bit to create this monster of a hill, right? And you will have to undo that accumulation very quickly and all on your own. So if each of them contributed, let's say 1 kilogram to the garbage, you'll have to, on your own, clear away 1 million tons of the garbage. And each of them contributed 1 kg in one lifetime. So what you have in front of you is an accumulation of that went over, let's say, 10,000 years.
Yeah.
You'll have to fight what was accumulated over 10,000 years in a period of just 10 years.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. It feels like an uphill battle where there's backlash, there's opposite beliefs, people don't want to heed to science or data or facts.
That's why there is no time to even feel despondent or get emotional or anything. The task at hand is just so mammoth
Yeah.
that you can't even care whether the task is being completed. The people in the past might have had it easy. They all needed to just do 1 kg of their bit.
Yeah.
Each of them just kept coming and kept putting in 1 kg of filth in the already created garbage. Yes.
I think that's...
But if today you want to undo that damage, you'll have to work 1,000 times harder than any of them ever did. So relentless effort and uncompromising love, that's the answer.
Is there a psychological trait or behavioral trait or a way of speaking to someone that you have found throughout your discourse that has impacted people or that has
You
at
should
least
not
touched them
be,
somewhere?
one thing for yourself,
Yeah.
you should not be afraid of getting abused or even hit. And for the other, you should not have hatred, because when he will hit you, it is quite biological that there is hatred from within. So you'll have to keep an eye on yourself. You will definitely meet with resistance, and that resistance is actually violence. You will meet with that, but avoid getting hateful. For yourself, you should have a lot of strength. It doesn't matter to me what you're doing to me. It's okay. Whatever you do to me cannot desist me from my path. And for you, I'll never have so much hatred that I disown you. I'll continue with my efforts. I will not break the engagement.
Yeah, because I'm sure so many climate activists, social change makers, animal rights activists, so many of them feel the same way, that you're fighting a cause where you feel like it's for a good cause and for the greater good. But there's so much backlash, there's so much resistance, there's so much hatred that comes in.
They'll defeat you only when you are like them. The more you are like them, the more easily they will defeat you. And if you want to be undefeated, you should be more and more unlike them. Because you see, what is it that they are using to defeat you? They are people of fear.
Yeah.
And they'll want to activate your center of fear to defeat you. So if they are people of fear and you too are a person of fear, then they will defeat you. So you cannot defeat that which you already are. If you are afraid, you cannot defeat a fearful person. If you want to help them get rid of their fear, first thing is that you should not have fear within you. Otherwise, they will activate your fear and they'll make you retreat.
It's a horseshoe magnet, right? The left and the right. I think the two ends are closer to each other than further apart, that you're just fighting hate with hate and not hate with logic or reason or kindness, as you said. Is there a way to contextualize the Indian crisis, the Indian climate crisis? Because so many people think it's happening in the Maldives or it's happening in California where there's wildfire.
India is one of the countries being worst hit by climate change.
What are the symptoms of that?
I think we lost 8% of GDP just this year. To those who understand the language of GDP, 8% of GDP, not 8% GDP growth, 8% of the GDP growth was compromised just this year. A certain...
Because of?
What did you say?
Because of?
Because of the climate crisis, agricultural production, people
Supply
not
chain
being able
disruption.
to, supply chain disruptions. And when it comes to inflation, there are any number of crops that saw inflated prices because of climate change. Medical costs, the kind of extreme weather events that we are seeing now, the medical costs are tremendous. If you look at what is happening in Himachal or Uttaranchal, or what happened very recently at Wayanad, just calculate the costs. So India is already experiencing those things, and because India is a tropical country, it will be one of the worst hit places. We are a tropical country, and we are a poor country, and we are a country dependent on agriculture. Still, more than 50% of our population is dependent on agriculture, and our agriculture is still greatly dependent on monsoons. So we are going to be very, very badly hit.
Hottest summer ever on record.
Hottest summer ever we have already experienced.
52, 53 degrees.
Yes, it is already happening. It's not even a thing of the future. So I don't know how people can turn a blind eye to these things, but they will. They will. They will. They'll want to pretend it's not happening at all, or even if it's happening, it's not happening to them. So you'll have to keep shouting it in their ears. See, if you find this difficult, please think of the people who first time told that the earth is not flat, and think of the general reaction. Think of the people who were trying to bring religious reform, or think of the great scientists, think of the discoverers, and think of the social opposition that they got. And those things then probably can keep you energized. But what is certain is that when it comes to this particular cause, climate action, then the opposition you will get will be stiffer than the opposition any other cause has ever received in history. Because as we said, this particular challenge requires a psychological closure. We'll have to come to the end of human history and begin a new history, a new future. So the challenge is deeper, but it's worth it. In some sense, we are lucky that we have been granted such a challenge, such an opportunity to play with, to lock horns with. And the bigger is the opportunity, the bigger is the potential for inner growth. So,
speaking of climate action, what would you like to say to youth climate activists or students or the next gen who are so in touch with this?
Address the roots. If you just keep telling of this and that to people, they'll find a way around your words. You'll have to address the very root of the climate catastrophe. And the root, as we said, is spiritual. You need not get into religious mumbo jumbo. But you must at least know for yourself that consumption comes from dissatisfaction. And any amount of consumption can never be an antidote to the dissatisfaction, the existential dissatisfaction that you have. If this much is understood, really understood, seen for oneself, then one knows where all climate problem is coming from. And then one can talk to people.
If you could know the absolute truth of one thing, what would you choose?
In myself.
What is the one truth you know about yourself to be?
As long as myself remains, no truth about it can be known.
What's one truth about the universe you know to be true?
What is it that?
One truth about the universe you know to be true.
As long as I am the perceiver of the universe, all I will see is my own projection.
How do I know what my purpose is?
By looking at what troubles me, what ails me, to reduce The ailment is my purpose.
Is that my calling as well?
That is your calling as
My
well.
calling and my purpose
Yes,
to
yes,
reduce
yes.
the suffering.
Yes, that's called
My
liberation.
own self.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is it better to be a happy fool or a miserable genius?
Miserable genius.
Why?
It's just that you see, if genius refers to wisdom, then in wisdom, even misery becomes enjoyable.
Hmm.
So if you are a miserable genius, you are actually not miserable at all.
Would you rather have the ability to read minds or predict the future?
Neither of these. I'm not into these
What's
businesses.
the superpower you would choose for yourself?
The superpower is essentially your own truth. Power is the ability to act over something else, right? You must have something else that you can act upon in order to be called powerful. So, superpower is when the need to act upon something else is gone. That superpower is your own inner reality.
Is it morally acceptable to save one life to save many?
Morals are nonsense. So, acceptable, unacceptable is same thing.
Is free will or free choice an illusion?
Depends on who you are. If you are free, then there is something called free will. If you are not free, then your free will is an illusion.
Biggest source of happiness?
When you don't need happiness at all.
So contentment. How do you end suffering?
By knowing who suffers.
If you could add one amendment to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, what would it be?
Your first right is to know who is the owner of the right. You have been given rights to a lot of things without knowing who you are to exercise those rights. We think it's rights that are missing. So let's provide the rights through the Charter of Rights, Declaration and such things. It's not really the rights that are missing. It is the owner of the rights who remains missing. If I am there, then the rest of the rights will be taken care of. And if I am not there and yet I have been given rights, that's like giving the right to read to a sleeping person. I have bestowed the right to read to whom? To a fellow who is sleeping. This kind of right means nothing. The first right is the right to be awakened.
What would you like to say to someone who's opposed to veganism?
You are opposed to yourself, son. You're not, it's not yet veganism that you are opposing. You are opposing your own welfare.
How do we end animal exploitation?
By ending your own exploitation, by being more compassionate towards yourself. If I know what's really good for me, I'll be good to animals, to the entire universe.
My last question to you is, what does sustainability mean to you?
Don't be attached to Prakriti. Prakriti sustains itself and it knows how to. The problem with sustainability is you're clinging to Prakriti. You cling and exploit, and that makes things unsustainable. Otherwise, Prakriti sustains. It's the very essence of time. It has been running since t is equal to 0. So it sustains. You just don't interfere in your foolish way.
Thank you so much, Acharya-ji. I've had such a long conversation with you. I've learned so much. You've opened my mind in so many ways. There's so many parts of this where I was speechless. But thank you for your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you do, not just for humanity, but for all living beings. And Prakriti in general, as you say it. So I hope the world becomes a more compassionate place because of the wisdom that you impart. Thank you so much for having this conversation.
I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you.